My name is Vasudha Ranade, and on behalf of the Sophia Irene Heredia Center for Women's Studies and Development, it is my privilege to welcome you all to the second Irene Heredia Memorial Biennial Public Talk. As we gather here, we hope to create a space for reflection, dialogue, and a renewed commitment to equality in healthcare. We are honored to have with us Dr. Amar Jesani, an independent researcher, editor, and a respected voice in the field of bioethics and public health. We also welcome Professor Vibhuti Patel and Professor Medha Rajadhyaksha, who have been a constant support to us, along with the principal of Sophia College, Dr. Anagha Tendulkar Patil, and Dr. Sister Ananda Amrit Mahal, director of the Sophia's Women's Center. I also want to thank everybody present, as your presence strengthens the purpose of this gathering. I would now like to invite Dr. Anagha Tendulkar Patil to please say a few words to start our event.
That's okay. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of Sophia College, on behalf of Women's Center, I would like to welcome all the audience or everybody here for this second Irene Heredia Memorial Public Talk, which focuses on a very critical issue: women in healthcare, the dynamics of gender and violence. You know, while I was thinking about it, with gender automatically appeared the word violence. And I started believing in the fact then that indeed the computers know better. I googled gender and there came either violence or discrimination or invisibility. And I kept googling to check when empowerment, voice, independence, spaces will automatically appear if I Google gender. Let's hope that we are now embarking on a journey where at least our next generation, when they Google gender, automatically a different web of words will open to our next generation. My dear friends, that is the purpose of today's talk. I would like to extend a very sincere welcome to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Amar Jesani. Dr. Jesani, who's an accomplished independent researcher. This is how Google explains. And I so very like this independent researcher in the days when researchers have to struggle hard to check what kind of grant and which kind of research journal they are writing for. Sir, we are so happy to have you here, and we are all waiting to hear from you about your experiences and about what you think about this whole idea of gender, violence, and women in healthcare. Care is such an elusive concept, and I don't know whether we have realized that care is central to human existence. It is central to human society. My right hand starts paining, my left hand takes care of some of the functions. You know, care is our existence. And I would like to quote the former First Lady Carter, a very prominent advocate for caregiving, wonderfully written, where I want to keep aside, therefore, that human society is divided in their religions and in their caste and in their bourgeois and proletariat and in their intelligent and unintelligent, and those who are fit to survive and those who are unfit to survive. Very beautifully from social sciences, here it comes. She said something like, there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: let's see where we all stand. The group 1 is those who have been caregivers. Number 2, those who are currently caregivers. Number 3, those who will be caregivers. And number 4, those who will need a caregiver. That's all. That's human existence is all about. Well, this talk is very precious to Sophia College. I look at it this way, that this talk is definitely going to sensitize us, make us aware of the very sense of women's college that we run. It is so very aligned with our mission, vision. I know I'm talking about feminization of care here, but I take great pride in saying this, that yes, we are also culturally conditioned, socialized, trained to be caregivers. So we are also going to be looking at empowerment, we are going to be looking at inspiration. We are going to ensure that there is an academic give and take, because so many of our syllabi are connected with gender, violence, and caregiving. I am also looking forward to a community dialogue where, like I rightly said, that we are going to set the ball rolling so that the college takes it forward with its complete responsibility. The mission of being connected with not just those who need care, but those who have been giving care to people and there is fatigue that has set in. Something that is absolutely unpaid, invisible. Every time I am told, you're supposed to get up and give tea to somebody. And I say, is that care? Is that duty? Well, I know one thing, I do it with love. But I think it's high time that we start putting things together to understand how in different sectors care rolls out, either as a service or as a product, right? Or just as an expression of human existence. So hoping that this talk will be a trigger to what we all have been doing at Sophia College, critical thinking, connections, advocacy. Let us work together indeed to understand and to foster culture of dignity and equality. This is exactly what I mean, that I am very keen, we all are very keen, that we break the dichotomy between this hegemony of caregivers and caretakers and look at care as the crux of our existence. So on that note, thank you, Dr. Jesani, for being here, and we are looking forward to your talk. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wise words. We will now have Dr. Sister Ananda Amritmahal, the director of the SIH CWST, on the podium to speak about the Irene Heredia Foundation as well as introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to each one of you. It's wonderful to see this auditorium full. And I'm really happy to be standing here again and smiling at all of you and seeing all of you smile back. So it's been a long time. Today I have 5 minutes to introduce two extremely important people. The Irene Heredia Memorial Lecture has been instituted as part of the support offered by the Jandev Foundation to the Women's Center. And every 2 years we have this Irene Heredia Memorial Lecture. But who is Irene Heredia anyway? Irene Heredia was born in 1917, died in 2013. And she has a very, very important connection with Sophia College in that she and her husband were both members of the governing body of the college. But she was actually a chairperson of the trust for, I think it was 12 or 13 years, but a long period of time, until 1978. All three of her daughters came to Sophia College as well, and the connection with the college has been integral and long-standing. You may know that the Women's Center Library has been called the Irene Heredia Library, and of course the Counseling Center has been named for her husband because she gave a donation to set it up in the first place, realizing how important counseling was for young women in this extremely patriarchal world that we inhabit. But apart from that, Irene Heredia herself was an amazing woman, and this book, which you'll probably find in the Women's Center, and also some copies of which are outside, It's Been a Long Day, is her own memoir. She was a gold medalist in 1938 at the University of Mumbai, a time when women very rarely had that kind of achievement to their names. She served as in a number of public areas and so on. She was a member of the Film Censor Board. She and her husband were active members of the Goa Liberation Council here in Mumbai. She was the president of the Maharashtra State Women's Council for many years as well. And all through her life, she has been committed to this vision of empowerment of women and a society that offers justice and acceptance and welcome to all people. So we're really very happy to be able to institute these lectures. This is our second in this series, and we look forward to today's session very much, and also to a number more in the future. We're very fortunate in having with us Dr. Amar Jesani. As I told him when I just met him, आप तो हमारी जीजा जी लगते हैं, because Vibhuti has been part of our center forever, since the time the center started. And therefore, Dr. Jesani is not just my jijaji, but jijaji of the whole center. Okay, so that's a lot of responsibilities for you. You have to keep an eye on all of us. As ma'am just said, he is an independent researcher and a teacher in the area of bioethics and public health. He's one of the founders of the Forum for Medical Ethics and editor of Indian Journal of Medical Ethics, published since 1993. He was a co-founder of the Anusudan Trust and the founding director of its institute, Sehat. He is visiting faculty at Ethics Center at the Yenepoya University at Mangalore. I hope I pronounced it right. And at the Center of Biomedical Ethics and Culture in Karachi since 2010. At KEMRI CBEC, the Bioethics Training Program in Nairobi since 2017. So we have with us a very, very internationally known figure and a very, very admirable person because of the way in which he has lived his values. The values he proclaims are lived in every aspect of his life. Dr. Jesani, having you here with us is an education for us. Just having you here, hearing you speak is going to be even more of an education. We are very happy to welcome you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to take a moment to present a gesture of appreciation from us at the Sophia Women's Center. May I request our principal to welcome Dr. Jesani with a small token. Thank you, ma'am. I would like Dr. Sister Ananda to please welcome Professor Vibhuti Patel. May I now invite Dr. Amar Jesani to start with the highlight of the event.
Hi, good afternoon to everybody. I don't know why I'm feeling so nervous. Well, I come from a generation, I became aware and became part of the, college education at a time that was late 60s and early 1970s, when we used to have meetings like this where there'll be hardly one or two women and the rest will be men, right? And all the men were there to judge the women, when they were talking, right? And so I can now understand that why they must have, and how, nervous they must have felt at that time. So I think it's a good historical revenge, today. Because she has, and both of them have raised expectations to such an extent that I'm going to find it difficult to meet those expectations. Well, let me start with the first thing, that why I'm an independent researcher. I think it's a very important question. It's a very decorative name for those researchers who don't get employment. And that's what happened. I established institutions. I also worked in academic for 3 years in Kerala. When I came back in 2003, after spending time in Kerala, I found that it will be very difficult for me to get a job, because the kind of research I was doing was interdisciplinary. Most of the institutions were not for us, and I was too old to get a job in academia. So that's how I started writing independent researchers. Otherwise, doing independent research is very difficult. You need a team, and you have to have a good institutional support. So my main job has been since then to be consultant and help out people and do more teaching rather than being, the hardcore researcher myself. So that's the reason. The another thing that I would like to say in the beginning is that what influenced me and what made me very self-aware were 3 major areas, One was human rights, another was gender, and third was ethics. I started with the human rights in 1970s because 70s were the very turbulent, that was a turbulent decade of India. We became student activists in Gujarat. I studied in Gujarat, Baroda. That's where I met Vibhuti, because she comes from Baroda, while I come from Saurashtra. And that was a time when there was a Navniman movement which closed down the university for 6 months. We also closed down our medical college for 6 months. So that was a time when we became very aware of the idea of rights. That when we do services, oftentimes when you are studying, say, in the public institution as a medical student, you feel very superior. That most of the patients who come, they are very poor. And you keep feeling that you are doing something great for them, when actually what you are doing is discharging your ethical duty simply because getting that service is the rights of those people. And that services are not coming free. People are paying, because large amount of tax that we collect comes from the indirect tax, which also poor pay. And but there was no realization. It was those movements, at that time, very sharp debates about what we were and what was our place in the society, that made us to look at us. The gender was another one, simply because women's movement came up in late 1970s, and when we arrived in Bombay, the Mathura rape case and the whole upsurge around that shook us up, Till then, I remember my work in trade union and all, where women were not given very importance. Yeah, even to the workers, you can say that, well, if you can't come for the strike or a morsha, if your wife is saying no, then slap her and come back, but come in it, So that was the spirit. We thought that we were very revolutionary by talking like that. But it was the women's movement which made us to think differently. So these are the areas which affected us in 1970s when we were young like you. And we realized that it was not only a political significance of this area, but it had also a lot of personal significance to us as an individual. And the women's movement's slogan was "Personal is political," right? And here, the political is also personal, that you have to bring your politics in your personal life, otherwise you live a very schizophrenic life, One side you talk politics, which is very progressive, but you live life which is very regressive. So you have to harmonize, and in harmonization comes from issues like human rights and gender. And from that I came into the third area, that was the bioethics and ethics. The ethics I found as something that was related to human rights in a close way. It's like two sides of the same coin. If you have a human rights in this field of healthcare as a patient, then those who are providers have an ethical duty to provide that care. So it's I am not providing you care simply because I am doing an obligation to you, but I am doing it because it is your right to get it, right? I take informed consent when I do surgery, not because I'm a very good person earlier we were not taking consent of patient much. We used to take a very blanket consent. When I was a medical student, in the evening when you go for the round, you had allotted certain number of patients in the ward, and they call you and say, nurse will call you and say that get a signature on this paper. What is that? Tomorrow is the surgery. So I have to go there because I'm a student and I have to have cooperation of this patient, because in rotation we have to present our patients to the professors. So we try to have a very good relation. So we go and talk to the patient, show the chit where it is written that I hereby agree to undergo any operation under any doctor, under any anesthesia. Just one sentence, and take the signature because I ask and they give because they trust me, right? But then now we take actual consent, Why do we do it? Not because overnight we got some divine revelation and thought that, we should become now better people. But it was simply because patients rebelled, They started protesting. That's how it is. The things change not because there is some external force or we try to become good, but we become good simply because those people whom we are serving, they say that your service is my right, and if you don't do it, you may really face consequences. And that's how I came to the bioethics, so that I thought that this is how for the people in the healthcare, this is how the human rights should be implemented, so that they don't talk about ethics as something they decide. The ethics should be decided by the people who use the services. To be ethical means to be mindful of what patient is thinking rather than what I am thinking. So this is how an evolution took place. So these three terms are very, very important for me. And one of the outcome was this journal. In my introduction, this journal was mentioned repeatedly. So this is the Indian Journal of Medical Ethics. All of you are students. Some of you may be interested in writing, right, on ethics too. It's a multidisciplinary journal. Its name is Medical Ethics because it was started by a bunch of doctors with few non-doctors from the KEM hospital. But it's an independent journal. It is registered as a separate society, Forum for Medical Ethics Society, not controlled by any institution. And it is a philanthropic venture. We do not charge for the access to the content of the journal. So 1973 to now, any article you can download that you want. You can do searches and you can get it. Open access journal of this kind normally charge from the authors when they publish the paper. That is the business model that is used. In our case, the model is pay what you can. So we don't bring any kind of financial barrier in publishing. So it's called Diamond or Platinum Open Access Journal. So if any one of you interested, you can. It is also indexed. It is peer reviewed. Scopus is the standard in India, but in addition to that, it is PubMed as well as Medline index, and the Philosophers Index. And philosophy is also an open thing. Our editorial board is multi-disciplinary. So there are legal people, philosophers, and all. We also organize a conference every 2 years. So that is called National Bioethics Conference. Next will be in Pune. And last one was on the artificial intelligence in healthcare. That was of the 10th one. So anybody interested is at liberty to come and write and also provide help, because all of us work there as volunteers. This kind of journal cannot be run on lot of salaries, and we keep raising funds up to 20 lakh rupees every year to sustain it. And we have survived for 33 years and hope another 33 years are in store for us, although I may not be around. Yeah. So what I'm going to do today, as far as this presentation is concerned, is to cover this 6 issues. Look at the history a little bit. I like history because when anything new comes up, the first thing I try to do is that from where it has come. Because if you look at where it has come from, then you never forget about it. You also understand its meaning in a much better way. So I want to look at how medical profession, how nursing profession, and how hospitals have emerged, and what are the reasons and which time it happened. I won't go into the ancient part, but I'll look at the modern part, and then look at how the gendering of work took place in the healthcare, and then go to some of the data about the feminization of the workforce in India and how it reproduces patriarchy, and then also look at violence and what is the role of the healthcare services in caring for the victims, and then some way forward. So let's go to the history. As I said that I will cover only modern period, because even Western system has its own ancient history, Hippocrates and all kind of stuff. Even the Islam has a very strong presence in the history of medicine, starting from the latter part of the thing. Ayurveda, definitely one of the most ancient system that we have, and it also has a strong component of the medical ethics. It is not analyzed enough and brought out to the extent it should have been, but it is there. But I won't go into that, because what I'm interested is in finding out that how the modern medical profession evolved, And before modern medical profession evolved, what was there, particularly in Europe, which was the dominant force at that time? In the modern time starts with the colonial period, and that was the most dominant. And here you will find that for the common masses, the large number of providers were women. They were the midwives and the practitioners at the village level. And those were the midwives which provided a lot of services which was for the women's reproductive health. And you must have read about the witch hunting and that kind of stuff that took place in Europe. It has a lot to do not just about the superstition of the people which was used, or the religiosity of the people which was used to eliminate these women, but it has also a lot to do to eliminate them in order to get them out of the healthcare provision. because the new modern medicine was emerging and which was very much dominated by the man. So you will find that medical profession that emerged in 16th and 17th century was strongly, male dominated, and the common practitioners were women for the common people, and that's how the women healers were gradually shifted out. And its 19th century was the one where all this profession gets some kind of legal recognition. You might have heard about Royal Society of Physicians, which was there from 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th century. It gets dissolved. It actually legally controlled the profession. Royal Society of Physicians were the most important, And if you wanted to become physician, you have to be first go into the arts, learn literature and art in order to be doctor. And that was how, because physicians were most sophisticated people. Surgeons were considered to be lower level. Now they are very powerful, but they came from the occupation of barbers. You must have seen barbers around, right? You know what they are, right? The barbers in the traditional society, even Indian society. I remember when I was a child in a village, the barber will come every week or every fortnight, not to just cut your hair, but also to pare your, nails and this and that. All, even if you have a small abscess somewhere to drain it, this is the person who was used, right? So they were doing small surgeries. You'll find that when imperialist power went to conquer colonies and they were sailing, they always had a barber surgeon with them. Barber surgeon was well-known category at that time. Shushruta surgeon is very different, who is more sophisticated and looked at differently. But this was how it comes. So Royal Society of Surgery was also there, but there were segmentation of the profession there. The surgeons, physicians, and apothecaries, those who dispense drugs, those who run drug shops. And they were like general practitioners. Against that, there was a big movement saying that we must put our medical profession in order. And so there was a massive, you might have heard about a journal called The Lancet, which is one of the topmost medical journal. It was started in early 19th century by this fellow called Thomas Wackley. And Thomas Wackley advocated that there should be a minimum standard for becoming doctor. So you now take it for granted that the MBBS makes you a doctor, right? But it was not like that till then, Simply because anybody who takes apprenticeship under a surgeon becomes surgeon with the recommendation of that surgeon. I don't know how many of you have read a novel called Citadel by A.J. Cronin, which describes how medicine was practiced in USA. So there you have to go and work under the existing doctors and take the apprenticeship. And from that you are recognized as a doctor, and then you become part of the doctor society. So in 1857, that things changes, and it creates a minimum qualification for becoming doctor. So this is how medical profession emerges. But what it also brings with it, because once you get legal recognition, it gives you monopoly. I think that is what more important point for modern times that you have to look at. That who does it? If medical profession says that we will not provide you certain kind of services, then you are in limbo, because nobody else will be doing, because nobody else is allowed to provide that. Where there are regulations which are very strong, like Europe and North America, nobody else will come forward. Here we still have a medical council hardly functional, so there is a lot of informal networks exist. But otherwise, theoretically, only doctors have right to provide the care, right? And so if all the doctors are men, or majority of them, or 90% of them, and all the local doctors who are women and midwives, who are gradually weeded out from the society, then you can imagine how this male doctor will look at the women's health problem, particularly reproductive health problem. And there is a huge amount of literature, historical literature on that. That in Victorian time, they were not able to go close to the women, and how they used to examine, there are photographs and all. And they used to have all weird understanding about women's reproductive health. And that's how, when the feminist movement comes up, one of the things it does is to demystify reproductive health. You might have heard of the book called Our Bodies, Ourselves, which became very famous in 1970s, where women activists, many of them were not doctors, they sat together, looked at the body, and they interpreted that what their reproductive health is about. Right? But that its root goes into the 19th century, where these doctors interpreted women's bodies in a very different way. They had no understanding of it. And they believed that the index person who should be referred to in order to create standards for medical practice is a man. Even you'll find that clinical research or clinical trials that were carried out at the time, clinical trials started after from 1950, late 40s onwards, the placebo-controlled clinical trial that we talk about. But till 70s, the standard was a man. So if a medicine is tried out on a man and it is effective, it can be given to everybody, to the women also, right? So women started raising this issue, that why aren't we part of the testing? If we are not a part of the testing, how can you give this? Because once the medicine comes into the market, everybody is prescribed. Right? So this is how the monopoly comes, and along with the monopoly, the patriarchal ideas of the man also takes roots. They also decide what is the qualification. The medical council's job is like that. If you are a member of medical council, you can practice. Who enters medical council? Only those who study in the medical colleges which are recognized by the medical council, they will be admitted, rest will not be admitted. That means they decide what is the standard of entering the profession, right? And others are not allowed to do that. And they say that we will internally self-regulate. Ethics becomes internal self-regulation, and self-regulation all over the world have failed. In India, medical council was dissolved, thinking that it is too corrupt, and they came out with the National Medical Commission. Now, medical commission has turned out to be more corrupt than the medical council. At least in medical council, there used to be elections from the doctors, to do that. And when elections takes place, there is always a lot of churn, right? There will be opposition. People will be leaking out information. So that's how corruption was coming out more every day. In medical commission is appointed by the government. So government's doctors or government's favorite doctors are appointed there. So nothing comes out. You don't get any information. So it becomes very authoritarian on one end, and at the same time, whole thing continues. And the idea of commission was to, water down all the standards so that large number of medical colleges can be set up in the private sector. And that is what they have done. And today there are 700 medical colleges. Only a few years back, it was less than 200. So you can imagine, now every district hospital is to be converted into medical college. Government doesn't have money, so all the private sector will come up, and they will do it. Anyway, so as I told you that as the profession emerges, it emerges as a profession of man. And its behavior is masculine. Its whole understanding is masculine. So that's how, when you look at a doctor, even when it becomes, populated by women, they also have to play the same masculine role in order to get recognized by the society as a doctor. Simple example, when I started doing my research in early 1980s, going in the field and collecting data, particularly about the rural health system, I did more of social science research in health system. When I go out in the village and I say that about the auxiliary nurse midwife is invariably a woman, we said, well, what about her? Yeah, sister comes and does this thing. Normally does the immunization, family planning, and that kind of stuff. Then they used to have a same level with the same salary, with the same kind of qualification, a male health workers. Then I ask about, what about this person for your village? Oh, Doctor Sahab aate, you know. So you can imagine, I mean, our own imagination is such that, it's a man. So if a woman has to really get recognition as a doctor, you have to behave the way men doctor behave. The history of nursing profession. I'm going too slow. I'm getting worried now. Anyway, this was the area of my interest, and Aditya Iyer and I wrote a book on it. That was in late 1980. We were doing a study in the field about the nurses, and for that we had to go into the details of it. The nursing is a very interesting, because you were talking about caring and who can care and that kind of stuff. The nursing as a profession emerges only in mid-19th century, modern nursing. Earlier part of the nursing, like Amar Ayurveda talks about the medical assistant as one of the pillar of the medical care. Now, this medical assistant to the doctor is invariably a man. Normally, our even doctors in the Ayurvedic system, they were mostly men. You won't find a good example of a woman doctor in there. Women were more like dais and midwives, but not as real doctors. These are all systems were similar. So it's not that we have to feel bad about it, because this is how the history is, and we have to accept it. But what happens here is that earlier there were no, most of the hospitals were run by religious institutions, monks and other people, early 19th century and before that. But modern things comes up after Crimean War, when Florence Nightingale organizes women. Why she is able to do it? Because large number of men have gone to fight at the frontier. Many of them have died. These middle-class women whose husbands were fighting at the front, they were looking for a job. And she mobilizes them as a nursing force during the war. And it emerges as a new profession. Right? So this is a very important area, because Florence Nightingale came from aristocracy. She was not a plebeian, not from below, who was not a revolutionary, or who was not even a rebel, against the system. She just wanted to help the system where there was a problem. And so her ideology was also very much designed by that. So she did mobilize women for this task, but she did not fight for the equality of nursing with the medicine. Right? So this is a limitation of Florence Nightingale if you read it carefully. And they also became after that very important, because that later part of the 19th century corresponds with the emergence of what we call scientific medicine. The science entering medicine happens after 1850. Till then we had no idea that there were germs. We did not know about germ. Germ theory comes in later part of 19th century, right? And you will find a lot of examples where students are doing dissection of cadaver, and they suddenly, they are called into the delivery ward, in the childbirth center. So they leave that everything and rush without even washing their hand. There was no concept of you have to wash your hand. And that was one of the reasons why, the infection during childbirth was very high and maternal mortality was happening, right? From there, the discovery came that there was some kind of germs going there. And then gradually asepsis and antiseptic precautions started coming up, right? So that also gave rise to the hospital as an institution. Before that, because once you have all these measures in place, hospital becomes a safe place. You can really treat people there. When all those things were not there, only poor people used to go to the hospitals. Going to the hospital means going there to die, your last day. Rich will never do it. Have you heard of any Raja or any royalty entering hospital? No. The hospital comes to them, not they go to the hospital. All the doctors, attendants, everybody will come there, right, in their palace. That is simply because it was cleaner than that place. It becomes clean. It is cleaned up only after mid-19th century when they discover that this cleanliness is required. Hygiene, asepsis are required in order to do all those things. So this is how and this is how the nurses find a place there. Now, how do you accept that women can become, caregiver, as you are saying, but nurse, Now, earlier ideology of the religion was very simple. All women are by nature caregiver. This is how God made them. They are wired like that. So they were natural caregiver. This was what was the dominant ideology. Now you have to say that they don't have to give care only to their family members. They can go and do it outside in a professional way. So you have to modify your ideology, isn't it? Unless you do that, families will not be ready to release women to go outside and do the caring. Right? And this, in our culture, it was different. That happens in European culture. In our culture, who does the caring? There is a caste issue involved here. Isn't it? That was one of the reasons why upper caste women in 20th century, when after 50 years of Europe, the nursing came up in India, the upper caste never joined the nursing. You will find Maharishi Karve and Mahatma Gandhi making appeal to all the caste, saying that this is a job everybody should be doing. But caring is to be done by the lower caste people. The only women who were entering in a big number were Christians. That's how you can Kerala nuns and Kerala nurses, how they became very well famous in health system. That was one of the reasons. From there they came. Others will not find. You'll not find. Show me a early 20th century example of a Brahmin nurse who is prominent. You won't find that. That's how. They have to change this ideology and bring it. So this is and the last thing that happened was, as I told you, that Florence Nightingale accepted that nursing will be subordinate to the medicine. So there was a long pressure by the medical profession not to recognize nursing as a separate profession. It took long time. It's in 1920 was the first law passed in United Kingdom. That was after 70 years of its existence, saying that nurses has a separate council. But the nursing curriculum will be decided by doctors. Nursing council may have a president who is a medical professional. Till 1990, the Maharashtra Nursing Council, you will find that its president used to come from medicine, and most of the faculty teaching in the nursing schools, so big nursing schools, were coming from medicine. So they did not want to give up this. So here you will find that effectively there is a separation between medical task and the nursing task, and both of them are shaped by gender, because nursing is women, feminine, and the medicine is masculine, where you do diagnosis, you do curing, you give orders. There is another part that is nursing, who takes orders and implement them. So you have a hierarchy created there. History of hospital I have already told you, so I'm not going to go into it, because history comes up in the same way that the scientific medicine and the asepsis looks at, and that's how nurses also found their role in the hospitals. And I told you how the gender roles worked out. This is somewhat more elaborate about gender role. Not the sex of the health worker. It started with the sex, but it is not just sex, but the nature of the task that is done determines the genderization of the medical care. So what kind of task you do, right? There is a lot of movement within the nursing to get parity with the medicine. And there are certain stratas of the nurses who are also doing tasks which are like medicine. You have now nurse practitioners. There is a separate category. They do work as general practitioner. In forensic medicine, you have nursing forensic doctors who have been working. So there are a lot of things there which are emerging because of the new technology and the new task. So there is a blurring of the things there, and the nurses are also claiming to have a equal status. But in general, the task done by the doctors is masculine, which includes diagnosing. Diagnosing is the most critical part. You won't find nursing getting involved so easily unless they come for the private consultation and to help you. They won't get involved there because they consider to be domain of the, and doctors control that in a very strong way. Determination of the therapeutic to be offered, that is writing prescription, doing surgery. Nurse can assist, but nurse doesn't do surgery. And that also is being challenged, and at different places. It's still not as much in India, but there are places where it is happening. And decision making for the management of the patients. All of these things are done by the doctors, as I told you. And the feminine tasks are physical and emotional caring of the patients, implementing clinical decisions taken by the doctor, provision of counseling and the support to the patient. All those things are nurses. That's what I also discovered when I was a medical student, that if I wanted to find out more about the patient's background, the nurses were the best people to help me. Because they are interacting, and this doctor will say, okay, this is the prescription, and it is a nurse who will ask, but sir, they don't have money to buy that. Because the patient will not speak out, So they were the ones who provided that kind of support. So medicine, before 19th century and earlier, ancient time, which combined both medicine as well as nursing tasks, gets separated. And so it creates some kind of hierarchy within the profession. So coming to feminization of the healthcare workforce, I told you that just having women may not be sufficient if the task that they are doing is masculine or feminine. As you see that from since 1990s, you will find that large number of women have entered medicine. When I was a medical student, we had 140 students class. The women were only 20 out of them. That means about 15% of the enrollment was women. Today, it is anything between 55 to 60%. The uptake of the medical colleges is a feminization there. Although the entire profession has not feminized, simply because all women who become doctors, they don't practice, right? And this is not only India. This is happening in many of the South Asian states. Pakistan, I used to visit till 2018 to teach there in Karachi, and I used to find that they also had a majority of the students were women, but the majority of the practitioners were men, because the women who were getting degrees, they were not allowed to practice. Large number of them were not allowed to practice. But many, in hospital you will find some of the best, the experts were women, even in Karachi, which I used to visit regularly. And enrollment in the nursing college is still predominantly of women. The men, perhaps earlier it used to be 4 to 5%. Now it might have increased to 10%. And that increase is artificial in the sense that there's a big demand of male nurses abroad. So there are a large number of nursing colleges now, but they are open in order to cater to the international market. And that is where male nurses are demanded. I don't know, as far as my reading of the Indian hospitals is concerned, that hospitals are demanding that we should have enough number of men nurses too. It's not, unless some of you might have seen it. I haven't seen any study saying that there is an increasing demand. But I think the number is increasing simply because they want to go abroad and give services. If you look at, I could get only this data, 2017 and 18 NSS employment data. It says that in total workforce, the presence of women is only 23.3%. But in healthcare, it is very different. It is 48.9. So it's almost half of the health workforce comes from women. And this is a highly women-oriented one. And you can say that this is because it is service sector. If service sector is more of a non-profit, non-market driven, all those economies where I have done studies, it will show that it dominates by the women, because there is no big money to be made. Right? You look at Soviet Union, when it was Soviet Union in 1970s and 80s, somebody who has read Alexander Solzhenitsyn, he writes the cancer ward and his novels. You will find that invariably the doctors and the superintendent who are highly oppressive otherwise, they all were women. Right? So women were dominant in the workforce in those places. Here in India, that is coming up now. That means there is an assertion, there is no doubt. Right? And India is not becoming a welfare healthcare. It is becoming more market-oriented, profit-oriented, and still there is an increase in women there. So that shows that I'm not taking into consideration Ashas and Anganwadis here, who are a big number, which I'll show you that. 80% of the nursing workforce is women in the employment, and 29% of allopathic doctors and 13% of the Ayush doctors who are employed, they are in the workforce are women. That NSS data are not always fully reliable because they may be missing out on some of the self-employed people. But still it is an indicator that the presence of women is definitely increasing. Gender categorization of tasks influences the concentration of women in different disciplines. So now we try to do some kind of further breakdown of the medical profession. Women are concentrated in disciplines with less market demand or in work with more drudgery. Within each role, even in disciplines with more women, leadership positions are still occupied by the man. Only 1 in 5 leadership positions are occupied by the women. So even if you see those specialities, which is strongly with women, you will find that leadership is still with the man. So these are disciplines. These are the data I was trying to take out. So I thought that the best way to look at the discipline is to look at the postgraduates. What are the number of women who are coming out as postgraduates in different disciplines. So in cardiology, you will find that as compared to 220, 78 females. So you'll find that ratio. These are all disciplines which are market driven. If you become cardiologist, if you become general surgeon, if you become nephrologist, if you become orthopedic surgeon, it's a money spending. That's how there is an attraction to the medicine. Not because they want to do service, but they want to become rich very fast. And they also pay, because now it runs into crores of rupees to become a specialist. So you'll find all these disciplines are big high-flying disciplines and dominated by men. Not enough women are getting in. In my time, orthopedic was the one which was almost no women. They said, well, it requires a lot of muscles, because in orthopedic you have to do that. Actually, it is not like that. Now women are there and they are doing it with they used to say that technology you cannot. IIT didn't have women, and now those women are there and they are doing all the engineering work without any problem. So the only place you will find women, which is, a discipline which is a big demand, and yet women are in big, is gynecology, right? Obstetric and gynecology. In my time, 30% of the women were in the obstetric and gynecology, 70% were men. It is reversal now. I think it is because of the demand change. Women want to be, treated by women for the reproductive health issues. Right? Earlier there were less issues of this kind. I think it is also impact of women's movement which brought them there. But that does not mean that obstetric and gynecology has become very sensitive to women's issues. Right? All of you know that cesarean sections are going up, almost 50% of the, which are all irrational, right? Hysterectomies have gone up, right? And they are not all done by male obstetric and gynecology. They are also done by the women obstetric and gynecology. So as I said, that it's a task you do, as a medical person, that determines how you think about it, right? And so you play the same role as the masculine role demand. This is disciplines which are has a less power and has less market domination. Anesthesiology, dentistry, microbiology, Ayurveda, Unani, homeopathy, nursing, physiotherapy, all of them are women dominated. All these, I remember, early when in 1980s when I started doing work on nursing, I went through a lot of medical sociology literature from USA. And one of the research questions that in a oral history method they had asked was to find out that how do doctors decide about whom to marry. Now, it was a very interesting question. Initially, I thought it was a funny question. But when I started reading the oral history, I found that it was true in India also. A surgeon will marry an anesthetist. Right? Surgeon is man, anesthetist is woman. Because anesthesia is dominated by women. Surgery is dominated by men. And you go to small nursing home and all, they start. And you'll find this kind of combination. A general medicine person is marrying a pathologist because you do a lot better, right? Or surgeon marrying a radiologist because you do a lot of radiology work, right? This combination they discovered in US long back in 1940s and 50s, and they documented it through oral history. There are a few books on it. I still have in my library, our personal library. If you want to read, you can let me know. But it's very, very interesting thing that I found. And this is where it comes from, that these are the ones which are not considered to be dominant discipline. It does not give as much power within the profession and over the patients. But if you are a surgeon, if you are a cardiologist, all those gives you power. So this is and I think that but nobody has done a study in India. I hope somebody from Sophia does it. This is a women's university, so you should be doing it, taking it up now. In addition to that, as I was saying, that there are a large number of other health workers who are semi-formal ones. Asha is one, 1.1 to 1.2 million of them are there. You have Anganwadi workers, which are 1.3 million. You have 1.2 million of the Anganwadi helpers are there. So you have almost 3.5 million other health workers, which are all women. Actually, these are the jobs of the women. They don't take any man in it, At least in nursing, formally it is not women's job. It is open to man. Here, it's all women, right? By law. So you'll find that this is the system which is highly dominated by coming to dominate by women, and yet it's structured in a very hierarchical, patriarchal way, and it delivers services in a very patriarchal manner. So division of labor and the way of working still remains the patriarchal. So now let me connect it to the violence. I think she has said that when you talk about gender, you also find violence. So having more women, what happens? One of the reasons why co-education was not acceptable to our grandfather and mothers, was that if there is a co-education, there will be a lot of violence against girls there, right? By the boys. Boys are normally naughty and all. So what happens if there are a lot of women? And that's why when I was student, I used to have, the gossiping about violence and sex was the commonplace in the medical schools. Right? Because there are so many women around, which you won't find. You go to the technology faculty, you won't find women around. In the same way, arts faculty, you will have a lot of women, and so you'll find. So this kind of stuff makes it more prone to issues of sexual harassment, sexual assault. And that's how you'll find health system keeps coming in the picture again and again when the violence against women is reported. frontline workers, which many of them are women, they also get the brunt of violence. Because if system is not delivering, whom do you get angry with? Those who are directly in contact with you. You can't go to the director and fight, right? And there are a lot of, generally also there is violence against health workers. Doctors keep talking about a lot, but in India, this violence is much less as compared to the violence against doctors and hospitals that is taking place, say, in China. Some of you who are interested in looking at violence against health system should study China. China was once upon a time a welfare system where everybody was getting health care, although it was not very high technology health care. But still everybody had access, and now with the market coming in, things have changed. So you'll find that the attacks on doctors is the highest in China. Not only that, there are organizations like mafias, whose job is to take up tasks to go and attack the doctors and the hospitals on behalf of the patients who felt injustice there. We have published papers on this in the Indian Journal of Medical Ethics if you want to read about it. India, it is not that much. But if you don't get access, that is one, to the healthcare. If you get access but you are treated badly, not just medically treated badly, but people are treating you badly because of your caste, because of sexuality, because of your religion, right? That is the trigger when people get angry and they come in a group and they attack. You will find this happening also along with the other reasons. The more powerful people, politicians, who will attack, So it has a multi-dimensional reason, but one of the reason is connected to the gender issues, where both the perceived injustice to the women. You will find many of the cases are about women dying in the labor or being given wrong advice and the family coming and attacking. This other part of it is a violence within the healthcare system. Patients attacking the health workers within the ward. And that is known and that is coming in the news. But what about patients getting attacked and violence against them, which is less talked about? But there is a lot of academic literature on it, which is coming up. I don't know how many of you have ever gone to, say, public hospital and looked at the labor ward, where the childbirth takes place. When I was a student in 1970s, it was a very traumatic experience. The woman who is undergoing labor will be abused like anything, both by the doctor as well as nurses, and the ward boys, and everybody. Right? And they will use choicest abuses and galis, to address her, which I saw at that time, and we thought that this was a part of the culture of the hospital. But it is still there, and there is huge amount of literature coming out to show you about obstetric violence. And there is also in mental health care. You might have read Michael Foucault, The Madness and Civilization, which says, how the violence was done against them. Then there are geriatric cases against whom the violence has taken place. Rima Nagarajan, that Times of India journalist, she has been writing quite a lot about violence against patients, because she got sensitized when a case in West Bengal happened where a woman doctor was raped and killed. And so she said that, we are giving so much of prominence to this, but we are not giving any prominence to the patients being there. So she started writing. She also wrote an editorial in Indian Journal of Medical Ethics. So I won't go into the lot of discussion on that, but it has a very strong connection where the system of medicine, which keeps on the gender basis, women under control, is also works around to do the gender-based violence for the patients as well as the other people. On the other hand, it is very important for the health system to be sensitive to the violence which is reported from outside. Actually, health is the one system where anybody who encounters violence may sooner or later be visiting it in order to get care. So if there is a domestic violence cases, if it goes on for 10 years, I think few times that woman definitely comes to the hospital for some care. Or if it is a sexual assault, woman will come there. Right? If his person has died, ultimately has to come there because there has to be autopsy to be carried out by them. So if there is a very sensitive healthcare system, it can play a big role in finding out that there is a violence and helping the person who is suffering from it. Right? So that's how I've given the title. This was the title that I had used long back in 1998 when we organized first international conference in YMCA at Bombay Central on violence and healthcare system. So violence victims and survivors approaching the healthcare and healthcare doing nothing for them simply because, let's say, domestic violence cases. Do you think they were not coming to the door? In 1998, in JJ Hospital, researchers carried out a study to find out that in the casualty ward, women who were coming with injuries, what was the cause of those injuries? And they found that in 1/3 of the cases, women did say that it was caused by the domestic violence. In another 1/3, they found that they suspected, but women will not spell out. It was only another last 1/3 which was caused by accident and other reason. Normally she will come, oh, I fell down, I had this, I had that, but actually she was beaten up, right? So this gave the idea of setting up Dilasa as a women-centered health services in Baba Hospital in Bandra in year 2000. That's how the Sehat started its work with the violence against women. And what was our major obstacle? The system itself. As I said, that if the people working there, if doctor believes that this violence is common, men beating a wife is natural thing, because wife also believes that man has a right to beat. Read the National Family Health Survey. Right, 40% of the women who suffer from domestic violence say that husband has a right to beat them, and they beat because we make some mistake. Right. So the doctors are also like that, right? Nurses also will not report violence because many of them have violence in their own family. How many families like that their daughter or daughter-in-law or wife is going to a place and in a very intimate way scrubbing and doing all kind of work for a man who is other than the husband? No. When I was doing work in rural areas and researchers, everybody believed that this woman should be of low moral character, a nurse, simply because she is so intimate. She also goes and gives advice about family planning. She knows about family planning. So she must be using it, So she didn't have a good moral. Actually, nursing, secretary's job, they are all stigmatized job in the Indian setting. So our first task in the Baba Hospital was to sensitize the entire workforce. So when Dilasa was set up, from lowest level, peon to highest level, everybody had to undergo training, gender sensitization training. And they, during their health work, and when they are doing medical care work, when woman comes, they were told that you must ask a question about violence that they are suffering from. And they started finding cases, and then they were referred to the Dilasa, which was the center that was set up there, which was a one-stop crisis center, counseling, legal support, occupational learning and all. 99% or even more than that, women do not want to separate. They want to stay there and still have their protection. That idea emerges from that work that was earlier done by the women's movement in 80s and 90s, and from the health work that comes there. So this is a Sexual assault is another one. I mean, Supreme Court had passed so many strictures against the medical profession on it. When I was a medical student, my forensic medicine textbook of Modi's textbook was one of the best textbooks. Still it is. Now it has changed because of the intervention of Sehat and other organization to change its content. But at that time, that edition used to say that when a woman comes with a complaint of rape, please suspect that she may be lying. This is written up front, right? All of us were taught like that. As a doctor, you should not never believe woman so easily, That has changed now. They said that you have to find out whether her moral character is good or not. How does it matter? Suppose she is completely immoral woman, right? Having multiple relationships, or she is a sex worker. But how does it change the fact that in this particular case she was assaulted and sex without her consent? That is what is rape about, right? But they will go around. They invented 2-finger tests and this and that to find out whether she has hymen or not, all kind of things. And so when the case goes to the court, the doctor comes and says, "Yo, sir, she has no hymen, so she must be, used to sexual intercourse. I did finger testing. Her vagina is so petulous that she must be used to, too much of, sexual intercourse." So the judge is completely biased now. This woman is low character, and she may be lying, and that's how most of the cases were lost. So doctor were actually culprit. Now, this thing was started in 2000 onwards simply because of the impact of the women's movement. This question was raised by a lot of people, and particularly feminist lawyers. Flavia Agnes and all. They did a lot of contribution on this and said that medical profession is becoming part of the problem. And if they want to become part of the solution, they have to have a different way of doing. That's how, Sehat also tried to bring out what is called safe kit that the doctor can use in order to do the medical examination and all. So this whole reorientation may be needed about what kind of role that the medical profession can play. Quickly, what I have already covered the way forward here, because I already told you about. So how we can overcome the gender divisions within the medicine? And these are some of the suggestions that I found from different articles. It requires profound transformation in the way medicine is structured and practiced, with also overcoming of the division of medicine and nursing. I find it is very, very artificial division. Why can't nurses also do medical work, and why doctors cannot do the nursing work? If you put them together, if you are my patient, I do your medical job as well as nursing job. Why can't it be done? So that is one way. You may not be be able to do complete merger, because there is a very complex system of healthcare now, and the different kind of diseases and the challenges are there. But a large amount of merging could be done there. And so the medicine, which is becoming very impersonal and technology based, they even don't talk to the patient. As soon as patient comes, the first they do is all get testing done, and they are looking at the radiology and laboratory findings rather than talking to the patient. Taking good history and learning about the patient is going. So this combination could be very, very useful. This is a suggestion that I found in an old article, which is very, very important, which talks about having collaboration between nursing and medicine in order to overcome this division. The prioritization of diagnosis and the prescription and all should go down. Another thing that is suggested is that why can't nurses and doctors be jointly trained? Why can't? What is the big difference in their syllabus? Right? Which one is supposed to learn, another is not supposed to learn. Mainly clinical work where the changes come about. Foundation has to be similar. Right? So if nursing is also a profession, just in the same way as medicine is, then there could be some attempts somebody should try and see how it works. At least in order to build a model and see whether it humanizes both nurses, also discard their feeling of insubordination, and the doctors their feeling of being a powerful person. If that happens through that, then perhaps we have a way out of it. Health financing, there should be more money going into the support for the women, simply because you have not provided that support. The other thing is that there is a lot of demand for the universal access to healthcare services. But universal access does not mean that everybody should be getting equal services. I'm just finishing. So that is what they say, that those who are traditionally neglected, they should be getting more inputs. Gender training is another way where some work has been started about gender training of the doctors and changing the medical curriculum. There are also attempts made, I think there's some 11 articles were published in Economic and Political Weekly in 2008, which did the gender critique of the medical textbook. The new textbook now needs to be critiqued and change, keeping that in mind. So these are the things, and violence. I've already told you about Dilasa and sexual assault and that kind of stuff. This is something that could be attempted in order to begin the changes in the medical system. How far, which way it will go, I can only tell you one thing. This is the last slide, so before I go, is that if you expect that medicine will change within because of some good people like good doctors doing something, then please don't remain under that illusion. I haven't seen a single system which has been changed by doctors by fighting within the profession. No. Profession has changed only because of the pressure that has come from outside, because profession exists in the society. So universal access system, when it was brought to national health care in UK, it didn't happen because British Medical Association was very progressive. No, it was completely opposed to the Beveridge report, which recommended universal access healthcare services. It was the Labour government and the trade unions which forced them to do it. Canada, Europe, just do the study of their history, that they don't have to pay now when they fall sick, simply because society wanted it then. Doctors were opposed all the time. In Canada, they went on strike twice to not to have a universal access system. So don't just depend upon them. But if you do something yourself, then you may be able to find a lot of allies there. And they will get powerful with you to make the changes. So that is the message for you. So you have a lot of role to play. And if you don't play the role, then I don't think system will change. Because women's movement on the streets, as I see it now, is no longer what it was in 1980s to 90s. Those were the days when women were coming on the street to do many, many things. So that's why your advocacy is the most important. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jesani, for delivering such a powerful and insightful session on women in healthcare, the dynamics of gender and violence. Your clarity, empathy, and depth of understanding made the talk truly riveting. We appreciate the awareness you have created and the strength you brought into the room. The floor is now open for discussion, inputs, and questions. So, if you have any, please wait for our volunteers to reach you with the mic. Yes.
Please, not only question, but your own viewpoint also. And I have a hearing deficit, so if I don't interpret your question correctly, please correct me and tell me what is the right
Sorry,
question.
sir, to hijack, but I just needed to know about one incident. I remember the KEM hospital and the Aruna Shanbag case. What was the narrative that a hospital like KEM came up with when Aruna Shanbag case happened? when she was engaged to get married to a doctor, and so much of patriarchy with it. And I was wondering always, I mean, we have read it through a journalist writing about Aruna Shanbag case, but
well, it's
what
a
do
very
doctors
interesting
say?
case in the sense the tragic incident where she was sexually assaulted and she went into vegetative state, you know. But the
I'm sorry,
she was a nurse.
she was a nurse.
She was a nurse and she was assaulted by the ward boy. That is what record says, and the ward boy was arrested. But I think what the KEM did at that time, and it, you know, and there was a big controversy about that, was that for a couple of decades they took care of her,
Yes.
and they kept her bed because she was in a vegetative state. She was breathing because there was no artificial respirator or any other things required, but her brain had died. You know, that is the stage where there is nothing else could be done, and she never came out of that deep coma. But the staff there took care of her, and there was a big debate, and it went to the Supreme Court where decision was to be taken that what to do with her. Can the medical profession or can the profession be asked to terminate her life? So euthanasia, what we called medical intervention for the end of life. Now this is now legal in many countries. In Europe, in Canada, they have passed law where medical assistance for death in cases where there is no recovery possible, with the consent of the people, where medicine that assists you. It is euthanasia, what they call, and euthanasia word has a lot of connotation because it was used by the Nazi Germany to eliminate certain kind of people, and that's how we all feel problem. Another problem is most of the religion are against euthanasia. They believe that life belongs to the God, and God decides, you know. So even in that case, dying by suicide is also considered to be morally incorrect, because then you are doing something against the God. So you cannot believe that this body belongs to me and I decide whether I have to live or not, you know. Do I have a right over my body? And so do I have if I have, then I also should have right over my body to kill it, isn't it? Not by you, but by me, you know. That is what is suicide about. So that is all, and because of that, you know, there is a lot of stigma against dying in that manner. You know, suicide, there is a stigma. If anybody in the family has died of suicide, the whole family gets stigmatized. On the other hand, you have government and state. The state believes that your body belongs to the state. That's why, you know, criminal cases, I don't know how many of you are from law here, but in criminal cases, you don't file you are not the one who are prosecuting. It is the state which is prosecuting. Why? Because it is a body which is attacked. Right? It's a criminal offense. And so state owns your body. And that is, under that conception, if you try to do suicide, you are committing a criminal offense. That's how if you fail in your suicide, the government will prosecute you, you know. That why did you try to take away body which belongs to me, you know. It's my body. So one belongs to God, another belongs to state. But it doesn't belong to us. So that's a whole debate. Euthanasia has a continuity with that. I'm just trying to make it as light as possible. But it is not so. I tell you, with people who have strong religious conviction, it is a highly emotional area to discuss, and I avoid discussing. End of life and beginning of life are the two where the people with religion are extremely sensitive. So we normally keep it low key, but there is a lot of concern about it. You know, that in such a case when you have no way of coming out of it, should I continue suffering, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So just a little background about this, that in one of my classes we were talking about how at one time women were largely looked in two ways, which was either as an object or either as a caregiver. Later I had a discussion with my friend wherein he mentioned that women aren't just viewed as caregiver, they are biologically caregivers. So do you agree with this? And if you agree with the fact that, I don't know whether it's a fact or not, that women are biologically caregivers, then why is there this stereotype of occupations wherein, let's say, even psychologists are mostly viewed as a woman-centric occupation, but as soon as you say psychiatrist, we consider men in that field, even though that is also about caregiving. Similarly with nursing and medical, as you mentioned. So if you could reply to that.
I don't think caregiving is a biologically determined stuff. No, it's not. It's not from your genes. No, definitely no. I still don't know any genes. He is a scientist. He should be able to do. Is there a gene for caregiving? No. Caregiving is a learnt occupation. It's a learnt behavior. Just as being violent, non-violent is a learned behavior. It is not something that comes from the biology. Why masculinity has a more aggression is not because it's because of his genes, but because of the way we are brought up. So you'll find a lot of men who are very gentle and never aggressive. And you will find also women who are aggressive and not gentle. So you will find both of them. This was the understanding that women by nature are caregiver, was the understanding of the ancient and medieval time, particularly medieval time, where the religion was too strong, and religion and the state had merged, because religion used to also control part of the state, and so they used to define what is right and wrong, and they believe that there is certain things which are natural. That's how, in the family planning method, natural family planning method is acceptable. But if you use any artificial means, use condom or intrauterine contraceptive device or pills or whatever, then it is not considered to be right, because you are interfering with the nature, right? So this is called natural essentialism, that in my thing. This essentialism that women are essentially caring and men are not, is a problematic. It is actually creating a stereotype of femininity against the stereotype of masculinity. And there are a lot of masculinity studies that a man, even if man wants to be soft, cannot show the softness in public, simply because then he will not be considered as a man by others. In my own peers I will go down. Okay, I remember when in my early time, after Vibhuti and I married, oftentimes I used to have a problem, because once you are married in that manner, you do all things together, and you work also in the kitchen along with your wife. But initially you keep looking around. Is anybody behind you? If somebody is seeing you, you feel very embarrassed that as a man you are also doing kitchen. You are in kitchen, right? But gradually you find be comfortable with that. So I don't think there is any biological component there. There is no biological component which says that women are less intellectual than the man. It's like it came in racism earlier. And now those racist theories are completely wrong. I mean, scientifically proved wrong. That race is not the determinant of your thing. Even people who are less intelligent is in terms of our understanding of what is IQ. And there are books about IQ. IQ is like artificial intelligence. The way you put the algorithm, it decides how much score you will get. So your background, do you think a farmer who has never gone to school is a stupid person? No, he is intelligent in his own field. So if you do the testing of that fellow for understanding of his own field, you will find that he is very intelligent. But the current IQ test requires the kind of education you and I get. Right? So if I have not got it, I'll fail. So I'll be less, Same thing is about that. Psychiatry and psychology, that point is a very, very, what I would call controversial.
Hello.
The psychiatry is being misused so much nowadays, that what I have heard about, particularly depression and many of the human behavioral issues are now converted into psychiatric problem, under the psychiatric manual, diagnostic manual. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Thank you for a wonderful talk. So when we were growing up, almost of your age, it was always felt that if women were educated and sent into, powerful places, violence against women will definitely change. Things will improve. But what we see today, that it is not only that it has not changed, in some cases it has increased because there seems to be a backlash. It is very disturbing to have a suicide by a doctor for the political pressure she faces, despite going to several places asking for help. So I want your positive suggestions to these youngsters. What are we supposed to do? All these people will reach places of power, and then they will have this vulnerability that I am not able to exert my power because the rest of the society is giving a backlash. What is your thoughts on this?
The way I look at, I don't have a good answer to your question, but the way I look at is that when I was talking about suicide, what I said ultimately, essentially, is that you are the one to control your body, nobody else. Just hear me out. Yeah. No. What I'm saying is that you are the one who is in control, and you have to, look at all those forces which are there, and decide what you want to do with your body. That's the way I look at. I say that I don't. This problems will be there. There will be a lot of pressure and other stuff, and one has to withstand that. One has to come up against it. How do you come together and fight against it is a different solution. How do you network? It's not easy enough to be, say, having large number of women, as I was saying here in your field. Representation is important but not sufficient. It has to go along with empowerment. Are those women who are getting into various kind of new professions, are they feeling empowered? Are they really feeling some kind of solidarity among themselves? But that is not happening with the education. I remember in 80s, the women's movement in Bombay had a slogan, sisterhood is powerful. And you will find examples in last 40 years in this city where the women killing women, So, there are a lot of intersectionality of the individuals that we should not forget, and groups. That we are, not only gender identity all of you have, or I have, but there is an identity of caste, religion, right? There is an identity of class, from what background you come from. Your vulnerability is decided not only on the basis of gender, but also on the other account. So if you are a Dalit woman, it's the gender and caste both work against you. If you are a Muslim woman, it works, as a religion as well as gender work against you. And that's how, when we give a slogan that sisterhood is powerful, is actually to overcome this division within the women. And say that, whosoever you are, whether you are from one race or another religion or caste, you will have to be together as far as the women's position is concerned. Now that is very difficult to achieve than said, So women will feel very proud of being women, but then they will not be very proud of certain kind of women who are there. And that has led to divisions, and that has led to fight within too. Yeah. I don't know. I've answered your question, but
Unfortunately, that was all the time we had for question and answers. But I would now like to invite Mrs. Dipti Anil, the Senior Program Officer of the Sophia Women's Center, to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to give you a little brief on the background before the release of the handbook. So, under the aegis of the Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan or RUSA, the Sophia Irene Heredia Center for Women's Studies and Development conducted the Community Outreach Program in Nutrition in December 2024 and Jan 2025. This intra-city outreach program, spearheaded by Dr. Ratna Rajethar, aimed to improve maternal and child nutrition through dietary awareness, education and hands-on support. A mobile health van team with staff and trained Nutri-educator students provided health checkups, counseling and nutrition guidance at the doorstep in 7 slum sectors across Mumbai city. The program strengthened community capacity for better nutrition practices by focusing on maternal nutrition, breastfeeding practices, complementary feeding, growth monitoring, anemia awareness and micronutrient needs. One of the key outcomes of the project was the conceptualization of this handbook in nutrition, which we hope will increase dietary awareness, improve dietary diversity, and overall we are certain this initiative is a step forward towards reducing malnutrition and fostering healthier and more resilient communities. This handbook is a joint effort of many individuals, for which I extend my gratitude to our principal, Dr. Anaga Tendulkar Patil, RUSA coordinator Dr. Yasmin Khan for their support and encouragement throughout this project, Professor Medha Rajadaksh for contributing to the booklet, Dr. Ratna Rajethar for her precise planning and execution, Ms. Jyoti Agarwal for her coordination, Dr. Lata Pujari, coordinator of the SIH CWSD for her able guidance, Dr. Sumanika Sethi for her editorial expertise in the Hindi translation, Ms. Aarti Jain for her inputs, and all the students of the PG Diploma program in nutrition who were both working in the field and have contributed to the content. I now request our dignitaries, Dr. Amar Jesani, Professor Vibhuti Patel, Professor Medha Rajadaksh, Dr. Anaga Tendulkar Patil, Dr. Sister Ananda Amrit Mahal. Please, ma'am. Dr. Ratna Rajethar to kindly release our booklet in community nutrition as well as our planner for 2026. Go give them and they can. Once the release is done, quickly go up there for a picture. I just request you all to wait for a minute with the students, please. Okay. Big thank you to everyone.
I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who made today's program possible. It was a privilege to have had Dr. Amar Jesani with us this afternoon. His presence and perspective have added immense value to this gathering. Our sincere gratitude goes to Professor Vibhuti Patel, whose unwavering support, sharp insights and generous mentorship continue to guide our work in meaningful ways. We extend warm thanks to our principal, Dr. Anaga Tendulkar Patil, for her continued encouragement and steadfast support, which enable programs like these to grow and thrive. We are equally grateful to Dr. Sister Ananda Amrit Mahal, Director of SIH CWSD, for her vision, guidance and inspiration. We thank Professor Medha Rajadaksha, Dr. Yasmin Khan, Dr. Ratna Rajethar, Ms. Rajni Desai and Ms. Jyoti Agarwal for their presence and contribution to this program. We are also grateful to the Irene Heredia Foundation for their help and generous donation. A program of this scale is made possible only by the efforts of many. We would like to acknowledge Mr. Shantaram for his reliable and seamless technical support, Mr. Abdul for taking care of the refreshments, the support staff of the Women's Center as well as the teaching staff of Sophia College, and our enthusiastic team, especially Lata ma'am and Dipti ma'am, whose energy and dedication ensured the smooth execution of today's event. Thank you to each one of you for your presence, contribution, and your continued commitment to our collective work. I request you all to please stand for the national anthem as well as the college song.
For wisdom stands Sophia's name, and sets our hearts with love aflame. Oh God, free us from grave and fear, and may we know that Thou art near. We long to serve on earthly pain. We pledge to Thee our mind and main. Our hearts we offer Thee anew. Our life shall stand for all that's true. Thy wisdom shall direct our way. Thy love shall be our joy and sing. Our goal shall be true liberty, our freedom founded first in Thee.
I'll also play the national anthem.
Bhagya Vidhata,